Please open your books up to page 283. This is an excellent article. It's actually taken from a speech that Bill gave in 1968. And it's one of those little jewels we find in this book as we peruse it. The part that we're going to be looking at tonight concerns itself primarily with Bill's spiritual experience, his spiritual awakening, and the results of that. At the bottom of page 263, we have to. What's happening here is that Bill is in the hospital for the last time. Ebby has been in his house, and Ebby has talked to him and explained to him what's going on. And Bill has begun the process of recovery. Now, Bill is in the hospital, and Ebby has come to him, and Bill has asked him to repeat what it is that he said at his house. What is this program of recovery that he was talking about? Bottom of page, 5 lines up from the bottom. This is what Ebby said to him. Well, he said, you get honest with yourself, you make a self-survey, you talk it over with the other guy. You quit living alone and begin to get straight with the world around by making restitution. You try the kind of giving that demands no reward, either in approval, prestige, or money, and you ask whatever higher power there is, even if it is just as an experiment, to help you find the grace to be released from alcoholism. Now that's a very good synopsis of the steps of the Oxford group. You'll see that that's most of the basic stuff that we find in the 12 steps. As Ebby put it, it was quite simple, quite matter of fact, and said with a smile, but this was it. So Ebby finally took his leave. Now the jaws of the dilemma really crushed. I hit an all-time block. I can only suppose that any particle of belief that there was a single thing I could do for myself alone was for the moment rubbed out. And I found myself as a child, utterly alone in complete darkness. And I cried out as a child, expecting little, indeed expecting nothing. I simply said, if there is a God, will He show Himself? Then I was granted one of those instantaneous illuminations, the sort of thing that really defies description. I was seized with great joy and ecstasy beyond all possible expression. In the mind's eye, it seemed to me I stood on a high mountain. I was taken there. I had not climbed it. And then the great thought burst upon me, Bill, you are a free man. This is the God of the Scriptures. And then I was filled with a consciousness of a presence. A great peace fell over me. And I was with this I don't know how long. But then the dark side put in an appearance and said to me, perhaps, Bill, you are hallucinating. You better call in the doctor. So the doctor came, and haltingly I told him of the experience. Then came great words for Alcoholics Anonymous. The little man had listened, looking at me so benignly with those blue eyes of his. And at length he said to me, Bill, you're not crazy. I've read about this sort of thing in the books, but I never have seen it firsthand. I don't know what it is you have, Bill, but it must be some great psychic event. And you better hang on to it. It's so much better than what you had only an hour ago. So I hung on. And then I knew there was a God. And I knew there was a grace. And through it all I have continued to feel, if I may presume to say it, that I do know these things. Then of course, being trained as an analyst of sorts, I began to ask myself why this had happened to me. And why it has so seldom happened to drunks before. Why shouldn't this be the heritage of any drunk? And while I was wondering, Ebby came again the next day, and he had in his hands a message from another great man, William James. And the message came to me in a book called Varieties of Religious Experience. I read the book from cover to cover, and naturally I found experiences corresponding with my own. I found other experiences, however, that were very gradual. I found experiences that occurred outside of any religious association. But nearly all of these experiences were capable of transforming motivations, had common denominators over and above any explanation by associations, or common discipline, or faith, or what have you. These gifts of grace, whether they came in a rush or very gradually, were all founded on a basis of hopelessness. The recipients were people who, in some controlling area of life, found themselves in a situation that could not be gotten over, around, or under. Their defeat had been absolute, and so was mine. Then I wondered about that defeat, and I realized what part my God of science, as personified by Dr. Carl Jung and Dr. Silkworth, had played in it. They had transmitted to me the very bad news that the chance of recovery on my own unaided resources, or merely by medication, was just about nil. This was deflation at depth. This made me ready for the gift when it came. Now actually, although this is a great experience in my life, I do not think it in any way superior or in its essentials very different at all from the experience which all AAs have had, the transforming experience, the spiritual awakening. They are all from the same source, the divine peace. So that's what happened with Bill, and it's important for us to understand that Bill realized, and he made it clear, both in the Big Book and again here, that the bright light experience, the burning bush, the epiphany, is not necessary for recovery. And there isn't any doubt that that's true, and there's no doubt when we read the Big Book that that is true, and nowhere does the Big Book even imply that we must have an experience like Bill's in order to recover. Which means, therefore, that the Appendix 2 is a great lie. It was stuffed into the book by the agnostics in the first part of our fellowship's growth, claiming that people would be confused, feeling that they had to have an epiphany to recover. It's clearly not so. The point they wanted to make really was that God consciousness is only comes to those who are religious, and they managed to squeeze that in. They wanted that scurrilous document included in the Big Book itself, and they were resisted, but there was finally a compromise, and it was added as an appendix with a footnote in a couple of places in the Big Book. It does not appear in the first printing of the Big Book, it appears in the second printing of the first edition. So if you've read that and it made you more confused than ever, let's remember what we read here tonight. That Bill was able to determine to his own satisfaction that God comes to most people slowly, but for him it was sudden and startling. So that's the true story of Bill's spiritual awakening, his epiphany. And it also illustrates for us that, at least in Bill's opinion, and I think a lot of us share his opinion, that this sort of spiritual awakening comes only to those who have reached a place of utter desperation. Somewhere along the line, we have to be able to recognize and admit our defeat, that life has defeated us. And amazingly, what we will find as we tour through life is that most of the people we have to deal with out there have had exactly the same experience of defeat. No, it doesn't matter how much money they have or where they live or what kind of a car they drive or what position they hold in life. They have all experienced this kind of utter defeat. The difference between them and us is they don't drink over it. They may do other things, but they don't drink over it. Ultimately, we will find that this defeat has come from exactly the same source as our defeat. that they're living their lives based upon selfishness and self-centeredness, that their decisions are made based on self, that they're trying to play God, no matter how much they may protest their religious leanings. And for that reason, the 12 steps work for everybody, but only can work when each individual recognizes and admits their defeat in life. For some, that's not possible. It's not possible, by the way, for everybody who is dying of alcoholism or drug addiction. Some can never admit it. Some will continue to deny this right up to the day of their death. For those of us who are fortunate enough and blessed enough, we get into AA, we read the book, we learn about ourselves and about our disease, and we're brought to hope that we might be able to recover, and we're willing and able to admit that we're defeated. It's important for us to see what this says again. Page 285. First full paragraph, halfway down in that paragraph. These gifts of grace, whether they came in a rush or very gradually, were all founded on a basis of hopelessness. The recipients were people who, in some controlling area of their life, found themselves in a situation that could not be gotten over, around, or under. Their defeat had been absolute, and so was mine. Okay, that gives us a lot of stuff to work with tonight. This is the time we share with each other. And who would like to start, please?
This last paragraph kind of parallels mine. I call it the gift of desperation. And I'm really glad to have it, because that saved me a lot of gyrations in the first thing. And it saved me a lot of resistance to change it, even though the changes that I had to make, I did. Gradually, reluctantly, I did. Fits and starts. That's a better description. The gift of desperation was the only, maybe not the only thing. That's the way I got here. Other people don't seem to have that gift, and they have to get it by some kind of education. I don't know how to get to a point where they're absolutely helpless and hopeless and powerless. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Ivan. John?
Yeah, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, John.
Yeah, I was blessed with the gift of total desperation. So we had anybody that heard the story, I had lived in isolation for quite a few years, afraid to walk out my own door, and I was pretty beat. I hadn't even surrendered yet, but I had run into a total retreat. And I never understood about, when people said that this is a program of want, not need. And that's where the desperation comes in, when you're beat into submission. And, a lot of people say, yeah, I surrender, but I think to surrender, turn it over to a higher power, I think it's a natural thing, and that's why people who want this program, or people that get this program, not the people who need it, because it just comes as a natural thing. You're blessed. That's why a lot of people in these rooms, they don't understand when people say that we're all blessed to be in here. we're blessed. We're blessed because of that desperation, because the surrender, it comes natural. And through the desperation, when the surrender comes, there's something that happens in our lives. Even though a lot of people don't want to talk it because it's hokey-pokey to them. Something happened in my life when I surrendered and I knew I was beaten by this thing. Now, if I'm beaten and I want to keep on going, I have to find something. I have to find something. I'm like a car battery with no charge in it. I'm going nowhere. And that's where I was. I was sitting in a room going nowhere. And we just naturally look for something to charge into. For me, it happened to be a higher power I choose to call God today. I didn't have the epiphany or the white light then, but things happened in my life, and I just knew that there was a God. And all my life, I didn't even believe in God. And things happened in my life, simple things like I finally walked to a meeting on my own. I never walked anywhere in 4 years on my own. I had to be driven in a car and driven home. I never went anywhere outside my doors for 4 years. And I walked to a meeting on my own, and it was, and when I tell my story, I tell it about the day when I realized that there was a God, and I was looking up in the sky, and it was all pink, beautiful. And it was like the first time I ever seen the sky, and I was so excited about this pink sky. And there was a guy on my way to the meeting, he was standing at a bus stop, I'd never seen this man before in my life. And I said, look at this sky. Did you ever see such a beautiful sky in all your life? And he said, what do you do? Walk around with your head in the sand? He said, the sky is beautiful every day. And that was the minute something changed in me. All of a sudden I realized that I was different from that point on. And I grabbed on to whatever this thing was, and I still wasn't sure, but I grabbed on to it because that day gave me so much hope. And that was my white lightning experience. And the day I had to put my dog down, 13 years living with this dog, he was my only family. And I didn't know how I was going to make it through there. And me being the selfish alcoholic that I am, I wanted him to just die naturally so that I didn't have to be alone without him. And I did the right thing. I let him die with dignity. I brought him to the bed and I had him put to sleep, which was the right thing to do. And I remember I was upset. My sponsor said to me, he said, don't you understand what's happening here? And I still get goosebumps when I talk about it. He said, 13 years ago, you drove everybody out of your life. God gave you this dog. Nobody wanted this dog. Nobody wanted you. He gave you this dog to save your life for 13 years. You drove this dog to misery. Now you have a new family. You have an AA family. God took the dog back. And I was like, wow. And I knew he was right. I knew he was right. And that's the day I've done it. Those are the days my whole life just changed. I became reliant on a God. And here I am. I'm going to celebrate a year this year. And when I first walked in these rooms, people told me I would have made 9 hours. Told me right to my face I would have made 9 hours. That's how angry, that's how hateful, and that's how much I thought this thing that we have here was nonsense. But I was here. And I try to tell that to my sponsors, when they tell you stupid little sayings like stick around till a miracle happens. If you stick around and you're desperate enough, the miracle just happens. You don't have to look for it. It's going to get you when you don't even know it's coming. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, thank you, John. You had a lot of grace, all right, and part of it was reflected to you through a loving sponsor who gave you everything he had, and it worked. He was practicing the St. Francis prayer, wasn't he?
He was.
And you know what's beautiful about that is that both of you got to grow spiritually because of it. One of the most important things that ever happened in your sponsor's life was having you come into it. And so we watched two spirits being released from the bondage of self. Amazing stuff. Who's next? Thank you, John. Who's next? Maria.
I'm Nelson Balfour. I'm really glad to be here. I related to it also because a lot of feelings have been coming up lately, you know, that I obviously haven't felt in my whole sobriety, a lot of pain, you know. I know that I've been feeling really uncomfortable for the last month and a half, just looking at and remembering how I lost my moral compass, you know, during my drinking and drugging days. And I know that it's just a matter of time healing this and my taking action and knowing that I'm in God's hands, you know. But I'm not doing this perfectly, you know, and I noticed I've been back into my captive defects more than I usually am, my fear. And also my self-flagellation, my guilt, you know. So it's kind of like I have to be more proactive, and I've noticed that, you know, I've got to be proactive with this program all the time. You know, as much to the best of my ability, you know. And I can't, you know, be complacent. I've had great sponsors in my life, and it's a matter of rigorous honesty. And the places I've been, you know, brought me to that jumping off place. And I remember looking at my dad's face when he was diagnosed with cancer. And I came down a very different girl than the girl he was so proud of. Because he did not realize, you know, what was going on when I was up in New York. And I came down to help him with his cancer, boy, you know. But when I looked at his face and I said things to him that I couldn't believe, I said to my own father, you know, something just made me stop. And it was God. And that's when I saw help. You know, when I looked at my old man's face. And I realized, you know, I had lost all sense of right and wrong. You know. And that's when I went to, I got help. I went to bar. Called my cousin up and her husband. And I went to bar. And bar. I decided to go to the first AA meeting I was going to, and that was at the bottom line 3 years ago. So I'm very grateful to be here. And amazing how God graces us. Because I know I couldn't have done it alone. When it was in my own man's face, it was just like I remember that, you know. Just looking at him in the life and, you know. Where before, you know, my mouth would run and run and run, you know. It took whatever it was that made me feel that truth, that glimmer of truth, that God consciousness, you know. And I saw that when I looked at my own man. So it's unbelievable. It really is.
Thank you, Maria. Who's next?
My name is Tom Paul.
Hey, Tom.
Yes, you relating some things that come to mind of grace of God through different people. And just when I surrendered, it was my friend. I just got going through my friend at the time. I was out of control, and I was on a bender and basically isolated. And I remember him, one of the few people I could relate to at work, very successful, but also out of control. Taking the time out to try to get me to go out, get out of the house, go to the movies. I was just not ready. He was like, I remember his words to this still needed, that straightened me out for a week or so, but I still had to go out a little bit more. And then I remember surrendering. I was getting beat up with bottles and trying to cut whatever. I don't know how I was in that situation, but I was drunk. And I remember going, "You win. You guys win." And they were still kicking the shit out of me. And I'm like, I remember somebody crying, like, after seeing this, like, "You all right?" I'm like, checking if my teeth, can we get you to, home or a hospital? And I was just like, "You guys win. I surrender." So that was like, I remember that being surrender. There, after that, maybe I started the rehab thing, and I still drank a little bit more, and then one day, instead of driving to work, I drove into rehab. I look at it as all those were just gifts. It got me. It took me a while to get there, but it took that to get me to really surrender. But now I was ready. It was a good program, and I learned a lot. I used to think I knew everything. Boy, I don't know anything. Up here, and thankful to be here.
Thank you, Tom.
My name is Mike, and I'm alcoholic.
Hey, Mike.
I can identify with Bill here when he's talking about the great thought burst upon me, and then later on he talks about, but then the dark side put in an appearance. Because I'll sit there, my sponsor tells me to pray and wait for the answer, and sometimes I'll sit there, trying to meditate and think, and all of a sudden I think I have this great thought or this answer coming to me, and then all of a sudden something else will jump right in, I'm thinking, wait a minute. And I'm thinking it's my disease trying to confuse me. I get all confused. The fight's going on in my head back and forth. I don't know what's going on, and I get, completely confused. Usually I feel like what's in my gut, what's the right thing and the wrong thing. For me, I thought I was special. I wanted to be like Bill. I wanted to have I wanted God himself to come down to me and tell me that it was going to be all right. I wanted to have this bright light. I didn't, all this other stuff about waiting for an spiritual experience or it's gradually going to come to me. That wasn't for me. I wanted something. I wanted a major impact in my life. And I remember sitting back, I've been trying to get sober for a long time. And I would sit there contemplating on whether I should drink or not. And I would say, well, God, like Bill had said, God, if you're there, move this tree or do something for me to prove to me that you don't want me to drink or something like that. And I would have these conversations with him, And I'd be sitting there and think, well, he didn't move the tree. I guess he wants me to drink, And, but I know for me that, when I pray deep down in my heart, I guess most times when I was real desperate, it seems like my prayers were answered. I had, the last time when I went out drinking, I had basically given up. I said, hey, it doesn't work for me. It only works for other people. It can't work for me. And I'm going to have to try to find another way to get sober because I tried this and it's just not working. And I asked her, I said, God, please help me. I don't know what to do, And then the first thought that came to my head was to go to a meeting. And I guess that was the, that great, what does it say? Put that great thought burst upon me to go to a meeting. I said, and then I just said, and then through my head it was like, maybe, this will be the last white chip you'll have to pick up, or, maybe this will be the last time. So that gave me a little hope, so I can identify with this. Thanks.
Good, thank you. I wanted to remind you of what it says in the Big Book on page 85, talking about the fact that we've been restored to sanity, that this has happened automatically. It tells us that we cease fighting alcohol. It tells us alcohol or anything else. It tells us that this has happened automatically, that the problem it says the problem has been removed, and that we haven't even sworn up. But instead the problem's been removed and it doesn't exist for us. Now how does that square with your statement about I was trying to get sober? I don't mean to, I'm not trying to trick you or anything. Let me see if this makes sense. We don't swear up, we don't try to get sober. Why would you try to do something you can't do? What do? We seek God. It's only going to be through His grace that we get sobriety. So how do we seek God? We talked about it tonight. We work the steps. The more you back away and stop fighting with alcohol yourself, and the more, as a consequence of that, you seek God and you seek spiritual awakening, the closer you come to a lifetime of sobriety. And it's the only way we know how to do it. Does that make sense? Priest.
This is, I'm Teresa, alcoholic. And I was thinking right before what Jim just shared. So like I always had to fight. I felt like my whole life I had to fight for everything that I ever had. Like it was, I was doing it. Like I had to fight. And before I did the steps, I didn't even realize how much spiritually bankrupt I was. You know, I was, because I was the one fighting. I didn't ask God for help. I wasn't seeking God. And then, so that just came into play that I'm so much happier now. That I'm gone through the steps with my sponsor, and she's really played such a part in my life of change, bringing me close to God, and that I just do the work, action first, then the thought comes, and it's really, I don't know, I just want to share that about her, because it's such a, my life is so different now, how I feel and everything, it's like, it's just so wonderful. And I'm like, okay, thanks for letting me share.
Well, thanks, Chris. So Big Book says this. It says, it just comes. That's the miracle of it. And you see, the thing that's not said around these rooms often enough, but needs to be, that this is going to be true for everybody who does the work. Nobody's exempt from it. The problem is that so many aren't going to be willing to dig that ditch we talked about. Not because they can't do it, but because they don't want to do it. It's too much work. And you said it, this business of being ready. John said it. Being ready is, and being willing to do the work. Yeah.
My name's Karen, I'm an alcoholic.
Thank you.
Okay.
When I first came down to Florida to get into a treatment program, I came because I needed to. I had pancreatitis in June, and my friends and family wanted me to get help because they cared about me, and I did it because I needed to, not because I wanted to. And once I got down here and started to believe that I wanted to, and I guess I always believed in God, but I never was really sure, or I didn't pay much attention to. But once I realized I wanted to, a lot of little things started to happen, and it wasn't like a big white light or anything. But at this point now, sitting here, and when we were reading about the when it came very gradually, and we're all found on the basis of hopelessness, I realized that I had reached that point, that I was pretty much hopeless. And from that point forward, I guess God was always there, but I was much more aware of all these little things, that when I was just able to open my mind, when I'm able to stay like that, I really do see that it happens gradually, little by little, but it is about wanting it more than needing it.
Thank you, Karen.
Thanks for sharing.
Who's next, Marilyn?
Let me think. Thomas.
Tommy,
Oh, there he is.
would you like to share with us tonight?
No, she didn't. But we're not serving on.
I'm Marilyn, I'm an alcoholic. Hi. I had a spiritual experience where I really saw God back when I was a teenager. And I knew there was a God, and I think it kind of kept me halfway sober for a little while. But nobody in the church I was going to, because I started to go to church and knew there was a God. I just felt him, felt that power like that, but nobody ever told me I was an alcoholic. And nobody ever told me that I couldn't safely pick up a drink. So what I would do is, they'd all pick up a drink, so I'd pick up a drink, and then they'd go away, and I'd pick up more drinks, and then I just thought it was really bad because I couldn't live the life that God wanted me to. So then I felt guilty. So then I just kept drinking more, and I knew that God was all powerful and all loving and all forgiving, so he knew I was bad, so he didn't care that I drank, so I just drank more. And I really didn't see any reason to quit, except you told me that I could have a purpose in life if I were to come here. And I could be fulfilled. And as fulfilling as alcohol was for me, I would find more fulfillment in helping others. And life wasn't all just about entertaining myself. But that I could find real happiness from helping you. And today I just have some praise reports. I got to witness a lot of people that had progress today. I saw one girl who I talked to for a couple of weeks, and she wanted to do drugs so bad that everything I said to her, you could just tell was just bouncing off of her, and she was just like, not one word. I mean, it was like so sad. And today I saw her, and she goes, the obsession has been removed. And she's got this big smile on her face, and she was like talking to me, and I'm like, wow. Like, I want to drink. I don't know. It was beautiful. And then I saw another girl. The first time I met her, all she could do was talk about her husband. But she loved God, but y'all, she blamed him for everything. Like, and today I saw her, and she was like happy, and she didn't mention her husband once. I even brought it up. Like, I was going to say to my husband, oh, no, that's over now. Me and God today. It was like, wow. And I saw another girl in another meeting I went to, had this spiritual experience. She's like, I have 13 years, and somebody had said something in a meeting. I don't even know what they said. It wasn't the words. But she all of a sudden, she said, I can have that connection with God. I can have that connection with God. It was just like, whoa, what did that girl say? I didn't hear what she said. But it was like, it hit her. So it was like a lot of joy today. I saw a lot of people make a lot of progress today. And that's cool. If I was out there drinking, I wouldn't have seen that. And I would have just been trying to entertain myself and then have to drink more to cover up the guilt for the bad things that I do, because it always led to worse things. And it's nice to be in God's will today, because I really believe that God wants me to be sober. He told me you could get sober, Marilyn. And I went, yeah, I know God. But he said, no, you can get sober and be happy, like Happy John. And I said, I could be happy, God? He said, yeah. And he said, you're going to be happy when you see other people, when you help other people, when you see other people get sober and find joy in it. And he showed me today that was true. So that's very cool.
Is that it?
Thanks. That was all, yeah. Done.
That was beautiful.
Ah, thanks.
And you didn't want to share? Shame on you. You've had made more progress in this year than you made in the 14 prior years.
Amen there, buddy. Amen.
Tommy, can you, would you like to say hi at least, or whatever?
Hi, my name is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Surrender is a daily thing. For those that think they surrender, they don't know. You're in for a real surprise. What you think is surrender ain't shit yet. There's a giving and giving and giving in. God will ask more of you, and you'll willingly do it.
Right.
Because it's not about surrender. Is the depth of surrender is like the depth of love, and you just like Jim was referring to, and the young lady had said she went to the bar. God sent you to the bar. You didn't go nowhere. He put you where you were, like He put me in prison. All the places we go, they're part of the plan that God has. Viktor Frankl, in his book, Search for Meaning, says the difference between man and an animal is his purpose. And a man without a purpose is hopeless and without meaning. And we have a meaning. And it does not involve alcohol. And it's about surrender. And when we surrender, we please God. And there is no other calling for man than to please God. So it's not a one-time surrender. And the surrender that you do when you first get here is not like the surrender as you go along. And some really, you'll see if you're here long enough, and when you're here long enough, some really bad things are, some real hard trials come to people that are sober. But they get through them because they know how, by practice of every day, of how to surrender and know that it's all in God's purpose. And that's what's really cool. Surrender is not a defeat anymore. It's a way of going down God's river and knowing that the ride's really cool if you let it. If you start to grab onto the sides, look out, because you're getting real hard. That's all.
Thank you, Tom. Surrender is, in fact, a way of life, isn't it? It's the way we live our lives. And that means that throughout each day we continue to surrender. Maria?
Well, my name's Maria, and I'm an Uncle Bob, and I was just thinking about, shutting the door on the past, and, as far as the wreckage of our life, seeking guidance from other people, and going to space where things baffle me, certain things, I guess that'll come, just like if I trust, trust in the process, and trust in God. Because I know when I first came in, I was taught, trust in the process of the steps, and it brought me to my belief in God, and I think I've gotten stuck. I'm trying to manage the mundane things in my life, my daily life. I can't do that too much. I can't do that. I can do it in front of I'm too bad myself also. So that's some of this.
Thank you, Maria. We need to pay the rent again. Let's do that. Then we pay the rent again, then we'll adjourn this meeting. Oh, Ivan, yes.
My name's Adam. I'm Mount Raleigh. What you were saying about the past, I had said 1,000 times that the promises were But then, after a period of time now, I'm talking about this recently, I heard the words that said, our past is only good for one thing, and that's to learn from. Bang. I thought about that for a while. I said, wow. Hey, all right. Now I can relate to that. If I use my past for that instead of morbid reflection, it works pretty good. I didn't think it was good for anything but morbid reflection. You know what I mean? Really? What? That's practically all the good I got out of it, except for the fact I knew I didn't want to go back there. But it's our past is to learn from. That's it. Absolutely useless other than that. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Ivan. It's undoubtedly true.
And the door doesn't matter.
Undoubtedly true. Anyone else have a irresistible impulse? Otherwise known as a burning desire. All right, let's close the meeting. Let this circle represent the unity of our fellowship, along with silence for those who are still suffering, and then we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. Please remember, we don't say anything after we say Amen. Thank you. Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you all so much for being here. See you next week. Please help Marilyn get the place cleaned up.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm leaving town.
I'll come by yourself.
I'm going to see Nick tomorrow.
I'll write your name in the book.
I can't give you an answer.
No, I know that, I know.
But call me.
So you'll be sorry you told me your name now, Karen.
Yeah,
I write like,
it really is
whether I should wire them the money